If you're used to facilitating small groups, then being invited to facilitate a group of 50 or 100 or 200 people can feel a bit daunting. Doesn't have to be, because a large group is just a bunch of small groups waiting to happen. In this video, I share why it's important to use small group discussions in large group gatherings, and I give you 5 things you need to consider so that you can set up those small group discussions really, really well. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been facilitating for 20 odd years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops, and community conversations. Now I spend most of my time helping other trainers and facilitators do that well too. If you're working with a large group, it's really easy to fall into presentation mode where you're doing all the talking and they're doing all the listening. That's not facilitation. Facilitation is setting a scene or creating an environment where people actually get to contribute. And so if you're working with a large group, 50, 100, 200 people, you want to use small groups so that everybody can have a chance to contribute and get their voices heard. In this video, I share 5 things you need to consider when you're setting up those small groups so that they actually work well. The first thing you need to consider is, what is it that you actually want people to discuss? And you need to make that really clear. So when you are sending people off to a small group discussion, it's not enough to just give them a topic to talk about, because that topic can go anywhere. If you want to give those small group discussions focus and direction, it's much more useful to give them a question to answer rather than a topic to talk about. So for example, instead of saying, we're going to break into small groups to talk about team culture, you might suggest they're breaking into small groups to talk about, what does a great team culture look like to you? Or what's the best team culture you've been a part of? By giving them a question, it focuses the conversation and makes sure that the conversation stays on track. Different questions will uncover different aspects of a topic. So you want to be really intentional about the question that you ask, because it will direct the conversation. And to help people stay on track with that, make sure you have the questions somewhere visible. So either on your slides so people can look up and check, write it on your whiteboard, or better still, pre-write the questions on the top of the flip chart or the poster that people are chatting around, so that the question is right there to keep them focused. Second thing you need to consider when breaking into small groups is, how big is small? What is the right size for this particular discussion? In my mind, a small group discussion is no more than about 4 or 5 at a push. Any more than that, it's no longer small. You've suddenly got people who can still be invisible and not contribute to the conversation. When I'm creating small groups, I think about how vulnerable this conversation might be. Is this something you might want to have with just one other? Is it a group of 3, maybe 4? Or do we need to scaffold it? Pairs first, then 4s, and then share it into the room. The third thing you need to consider is, how do you want these small groups to be made up? Most often, over the course of a day, you'll want people to be mixing up with different people, having different conversations, so they get to hear different perspectives and opinions about the topic. But sometimes you might want to be really deliberate about who is in which group with who. You might want to keep in mind things like power dynamics, experience in the industry, opinions for or against a project. If you're wanting to be deliberate about how those groups are made up, one way you can do that is to use a continuum. So you might invite people to imagine there's a continuum running through the room based on how long they've been working at the company. At one end of the continuum is, I feel like I've been here my whole life, right through to, I'm just fresh here, I've only been here a week or a month. Once everyone is standing on that continuum, you get to decide how the groups have made up. If you want the groups grouped together by length of experience, you can simply divide the continuum into 3 or 4 or 5 pieces. If you want a mix of experience in each group, then you simply number off 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then all the ones go together, all the twos go together, and that means you've got a mix of experience in every group. Same goes if you're wanting to create small group discussions where perspectives are for or against a particular project or idea. Imagine a continuum that is strongly agree to strongly disagree, and then decide how you want to split those groups up. When you're thinking about the dynamics in those small group discussions, one of the things you want to be mindful of are people who are bringing a really negative, closed-minded, disengaged attitude to the room. When I first started facilitating, my go-to would have been split them up, don't let them spend time together. But now I tend to do the opposite. I just let them have their own huddle. They can whinge about things all they like, and they're not poisoning the discussion for everyone else in the room. Fourth thing you need to consider is, how long do I need to leave for people to have this small group discussion? Like, how long is too long and how short is not long enough? In my experience, it's easier to make the small group discussion shorter and extend the amount of time required if necessary, rather than giving them a whole bunch of time. Some groups finish early and others are still partway through the process. But there is no magic number for how long you should leave people chatting. What is important is that you give people the time as they go into the conversation, so they can pace themselves. I like to think about how important the conversation is, how robust the conversation needs to be, how many differing opinions might need to be heard, and perhaps how much vulnerability is required in that conversation. I tend to give people a warning about halfway through. Hey team, we're about halfway through, you've got about 3 minutes left to go. And then I give them another warning with about a minute left. In a minute, we're going to wind up this conversation, so just share your final thoughts and make sure everyone's had a chance to speak. What's important about timing is that you let people know in advance how you're going to bring them back in the room. When I'm working with large groups with lots of people and lots of conversations going on at once, I'll often let people know that I'll put my hand in the air. I'll tell them that when they see me with my hand in the air, it's their job to put their hand in the air too and stop talking. I also point out that if they put their hand in the air and keep talking, it doesn't work. The fifth thing you need to keep in mind is, how are these small group discussions going to be fed back into the main room? So if you've got 100 people in the room and you've got 20 groups of 5 people all talking, you need to consider how much of that needs to be brought back into some sort of shared collaboration or shared sense of information. What I do want to say is, for the love of all things good, do not go around every table and ask them to read back everything off their flip chart. Because by the time you get to group 3, everything's already been said, and the remaining 85 people, they've completely checked out. So instead of going around the groups one by one, post some questions. I'd love to hear what surprised you about what came out on the flip charts. Or I'd love to know what's really resonating with you. Or what did you notice about what others shared in your groups? Some prompt questions that will bubble to the surface the things that really matter. And then you can put the flip charts around the wall and give people time to go and read the responses for themselves. Of course, when you're working with large groups, there does come a point where you're going to have one single conversation with lots of people in the room. And when that happens, you need to know how you can manage the airtime so that everyone gets a chance to be heard. In my next video, Effective Facilitation Techniques for Managing Loud Voices, I give you 3 simple strategies for making sure that everyone has a chance to have their say. The link is in the description below.